Today, I am going to do something really special. If you are listening to me and you don't know who I am, I'm Campson. If you're listening to me, you know me. Welcome back. Today, I am going to share with you one of the most powerful forms of transmutation for catastrophic thinking. As a highly sensitive person and empath who has trauma, big T, little t's, throughout my lifetime, I have a tendency to think the worst sometimes, and I wanted to know, how can I isolate what I'm thinking about and categorize it as helpful or not helpful, and how can I work with the way my mind ruminates on negative things in a way where I'm able to perceive something positive. So this question opened me up to receive the information that I'm about to share with you, and this is from my personal journal, which is what I'm using to write the guidebook for other highly sensitive persons, empaths, people who have codependent tendencies, and maybe people who just want to improve their emotional health and be able to have a mindset that isn't based upon you changing every shadow aspect you discover about yourself when you are going through the journey of awakening to who you really are and who you are not. My goal is to limit human suffering by exposing what I have discovered to be the undercurrent that is actually creating the traumatic reenactments that we often call these loops of trauma that show up, these triggers. And I am really excited to share this with you. So without further ado, let me get into this with you. The power of catastrophic thinking. I use my catastrophic thinking to feel better about uncomfortable present conditions. An example I can share with you would be a conversation I had with someone that I love dearly. And the question that I asked was, would you rather have the woman you love express her deepest fears to navigate them in a mature manner, or wait until the emotional disconnection is so destructive she becomes bedridden with autoimmune diseases, maybe cancer, maybe she cheats, maybe she moves out because she's trying to find herself and save herself from dysfunctional relationship behaviors? And by asking which scenario would you rather experience, it helps you to shift your mind to having an ego-eye perspective of what you are learning to witness in your own mind. So as we can see, the two scenarios of her suppressing her emotions so that he feels comfortable, or her expressing her emotions. Now, of course, to the conscious mind, if you offer these two, most of us would choose, I would rather someone express themselves to me. But if you tend to respond in a way that causes the person being vulnerable to withdraw, maybe you're responding with criticism and judgment, maybe you're responding with anger or frustration, maybe you respond in a way where you feel like they're blaming you for something by expressing whatever emotional experiences they are having. They're entitled to that. But if it involves you in any way and it's triggering to you, then you want to look more into, why is this triggering me? Because what we have happening in relationships is a lot of women are repressing their emotions and how they really feel because of their partner's inability to have healthy reciprocity after being vulnerable. And this is leading to autoimmune diseases and cancer and reproductive issues and even cheating and just separating and getting divorced. Like we see this is at an all-time high. And so the hard question to ask ourselves is, but which would I rather? Would I rather my partner literally wither away in front of me, crushed inside by my inability to hold space with them when they want to express their emotions? Would I rather that continue, or would I rather show up different? And I think if there is any love in your heart, you would rather show up different. In order to do that, let's discuss why we get so triggered in these situations and we sometimes can become critical of one another. What happens when the disguise we once used to survive becomes a key to our own subconscious demise? Trauma survivors tend to become hypercritical of others because our masks are beginning to come off whenever we get triggered. Losing the ability to regulate emotions is the ultimate mask off moment. No matter how good of a person we try to be, these mask off moments feel horrible. Without tools to navigate intense emotions, we tend to blame others for our reaction in an attempt to find relief or avoid the consequences of losing our temper. Blame is our internal shame projected outwards onto anybody we can pin as the culprit. Oftentimes, our children become the easiest victims to this. Now, on a more extreme level, we can see the gun violence as a reflection of the internal repressed rage that many of us have experienced through multiple transgenerational traumas that have accumulated. It's easy to blame the younger generations for the violence we see and label them as criminals. But oftentimes, we're shooting invisible bullets at one another. It could be a glaring eye gaze, a facial expression that you make, a grunt, something under your breath that you say, and likely it's a passive-aggressive thing, which is why you're saying it under your breath. These are coping mechanisms. And projection and blame is a weaponized behavioral pattern. And it destroys the way we feel about ourselves. And it weakens our ability to bond in our relationships. So the next time you have a catastrophic thought, or maybe someone else is having ruminations of the worst case scenario, just pause and ask yourself, like, okay, in looking at this, this catastrophic thought, this thing that I'm afraid of experiencing, it could be, I don't want my partner to abandon me. I don't want my partner to reject me. I don't want my partner to judge me. Okay. However, if my partner is really feeling that way and they don't have any other way to really express that to me because maybe they lack tools of healthy expression, if they express it and it's not in the best way, can I look at that and say, but I would rather it be expressed not in the best way than to not be expressed at all, because I know that this leads to internal pressure and conflict and leads to dis-ease and mental health imbalances, emotional dysregulation, and this now affects our finances. It affects our children and our children's children. It affects those around us. It may affect our coworkers because we are learning about energy. And the one thing that I want to leave you with, because all of my conversations are rooted in many of the indigenous teachings about fear and about this virus inside of the mind, wetigo. And this virus is the catalyst for a lot of the maladaptive strategies that we use in our relationships to try to get needs met. And so the next time you're in fear of an outcome that hasn't happened yet, ask yourself, by thinking this way, what am I choosing to happen if I continue thinking this way? And is there something else I would rather experience? And if it is, well, how can I think different about this situation so that the outcome changes? That is the key. And as we are being purged of these toxic patterns that anchor human suffering, we are having to see ourselves in a new way. In order for the new me I'm developing to stay present in the moment of triggers, I must have a system, I must have my tools, and it is important for me to be proactive and decide how I am going to react. Because if I do not choose to be proactive, 9 times out of 10, I will resort to becoming reactive. And if I am a nuclear reactor, powered by negative emotion, what is that energy creating in my quantum field of consciousness within the aura around me? What emotions are being broadcasted? And is that something that could lead to a manifestation that I would not rather experience? Choose to perceive in ways that lead to outcomes you would rather experience. And this does not mean to ignore your intuition, not discern situations and make adjustments as necessary. This is simply to help you process your thoughts, process your experiences and your triggers in the way that will actually help you to maintain a stronger sense of self and emotional regulation. Namaste, Namaste.
Tiger. Whoa, you ain't on my level, you ain't on my level.